I brought my own water from the plane. That's good stewardship, isn't it?
Friends, this is your 3-minute warning. Our afternoon session will begin at 3:05, so please bring your conversations to a close and take your seats.
Yeah, I'm glad you realized before my speech. Are you well? I'm doing good. How's your... Good, good. We still miss you, kind of, but it's good to see you.
There are some important things we need to do as an annual conference before we move to our order of the day. One of them is to recognize a special guest among us. I want you to know that living amongst us is a retired bishop from the Methodist Church of Cuba, Armando Rodriguez. Bishop Armando Rodriguez and his wife are here with us today. I'd like them to stand so that you might greet them. Would Bishop Rodriguez please stand? And your wife as well, please. Our conference has been blessed by a number of people who once served in the Cuban Methodist Church, and so we're grateful for this tie and this shared resource that we have of people who have grown up in Cuba and now make their home in the bounds of the Texas Annual Conference. Another thing that we do during our annual conference is hear from persons who are entering into the retired relationship. We have some videos to show you. Let's watch.
I was actually an administrator in the A-Leave School District. Very happy, knew I was going to retire from the school district and was going to travel all over the state trying to help administrators learn how to deal with the media. And then all of a sudden, I began to feel this deep churning and this deep calling, like God was calling me to do something different. And I thought, nah, there's no way that that's happening. But I had a very astute girlfriend who said, did you ever think that maybe God is calling you to do something totally different? And my answer was, no, I'm very happy with what I'm doing. But she goes, if I were you, I would listen and pray. And so I spent about a year listening and praying to hear what God was saying. I talked with people, I went on retreats, and sure enough, that call was absolutely so strong. And on a jogging track in the A-Leave School District, I just gave everything over to him and told him that I would serve him all the days of my life. We've been blessed with 12 grandchildren. 9 of them are still fairly young. So I want to spend more time with the grandkids and have more cousins camps and take them on trips. The second part is I want to write children's books. I've had the opportunity to travel throughout the world, and I don't want children to be afraid to go out and go on mission trips or to serve in other countries. So I have a whole series going around in my mind right now of an adventure book that I want to write for kids, helping them to understand how important it is to be able to serve. And then the third part is I'm going to come back and work at First Methodist part-time, still help Andy, still be connected with the people, particularly the ones of my generation. I have enjoyed every single moment of the past, actually 21 years at First Methodist, and particularly since I have been commissioned and ordained. I got to be on DCOM, I got to be on the Board of Ordained Ministry, I've got to work in so many different areas, and these are my brothers and sisters, and it has been just wonderful to serve with all of them.
I think some of the highlights of my ministry involve youth. Opportunities I had to teach confirmation, opportunities I had to, and what I discovered was you're making an impact on people and you don't even know it. Years later when those people that were youth when I ministered to them and then reached marrying age, they would reach out to me and ask if I would come do their weddings, and I didn't even know I was making that kind of an impact on their lives. And they would say things to me. You once said, I don't even remember saying it, but it made a big impact on their lives. So I think any time that we are making an impact on somebody, especially when we're not even aware of it, which means that we have to be living as people created in the image of God all the time. I think that's probably my most significant contribution or feeling of making an impact. I don't think you should retire until you have something else that you're excited about doing. I've been doing some discipleship coaching through a 501c3 group called Ascending Leaders. I get to coach pastors and churches around developing discipleship pathways. I've been doing some coaching through VCI, and I discovered that, man, that just makes my blood run hot. I love it. I love the relationships. I love the impact we get to make. So I have an opportunity to keep doing that, and I decided that let's go do that. I've also bought, or my wife and I have bought a RV, a bumper pull trailer. We love camping. We've been doing it ever since our kids were little. Get to travel around and meet a whole bunch of new people. In fact, over New Year's this year, we went camping with a group of 4 couples, 3 of whom we've never even met before. So, and one of my great lessons in retirement was sitting around the campfire on New Year's Eve with all these folks we'd never met before. When they found out I was a retired pastor, they started asking, oh, we've got a captive pastor here. Let's ask all the questions that we've always wanted to ask, but we're afraid to or never got a satisfactory answer to. So there we were sitting around the campfire, talking about God, talking about things that were really on people's heart. And I realized, this is what ministry and retirement can look like. This is an uncertain time for the United Methodist Church. This is an uncertain time for our people, our churches. I think about the ordinands, people being ordained and commissioned this year. God is faithful. Hang in there. God is not through with the United Methodist Church. God is not through with the Wesleyan Perspective. God is not through with the Texas Annual Conference. Hang in there. All will be well.
One of the purposes of an annual conference is continuing education. That's true for clergy, but it's true for all of us as we seek to grow in our faith and learn how to follow Jesus more effectively into the world. And for that purpose, I have invited a special guest to be with us today. There's another part that makes sense with what I said last night. If you were here, I reminded you that we need to focus on our identity, our DNA, who we are as a people. And we are a missionary movement committed from the earliest days to spreading the gospel all over the world. Thomas Kemper is General Secretary of the General Board of Global Ministries. I'm not sure if he's the one that coined the phrase, but out of his mouth regularly comes the phrase, mission today is from everywhere to everywhere. That's exemplified in his own biography. A native of Germany, growing up in a parsonage, he and his wife were missionaries in Brazil. He is fluent in German, English, Spanish, German, English, and Portuguese, with a little bit of French and Spanish thrown in. He went back to Germany to serve in the Methodist Conference there. Took the job as General Secretary when it was in New York City in 2010 and supervised GBGM's relocation to Atlanta just recently, and then the opening of regional offices in Seoul, Korea, and elsewhere. Friends, this is a man who understands what it means to be involved in God's mission of transforming the world. Thomas, I have great admiration for your leadership of our mission efforts as a denomination. We hear you gladly. Welcome to the Texas Annual Conference.
Thank you, Bishop. Good afternoon, friends. It's a great joy to be here. The first joy is these days in the United Methodist Church, when you have some responsibility, you not always hear very nice words about what you are doing. So it's just good to get started and have this very warm welcome from Bishop Jones. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's also interesting to be back for me here in this hotel. It was almost a déjà vu when I walked through it, because just a few years ago, we were here with the World Methodist Council. I realized this when my Uber drove up here to the hotel. Only when I walked through the corridors this morning, I knew very few people in comparison to the people from around the world I knew at the World Methodist Conference. And I realized this is really my world now. I live and worship, and I'm in ministry with so many people around the world, and I feel blessed, and it's really a joy to be here, but also to share with you about our connection. The bishop asked me to not only talk about the 200 years of mission, but also share with you about our mission today, what we do today in mission. And when I say we, I mean we, you and us at Global Ministries and the United Methodist Connection around the world, because that is important. Mission today is from everywhere to everywhere. I want to start with a slide which shows your bishop. And I want to thank you for your bishop and for sharing your bishop with the worldwide Methodist movement. These are 2 slides from Laos, where we have a mission initiative growing and having started a new Methodist presence in a country which had no Methodist church just very few years ago. And it is important to see, and you see the bishop on that slide, which already passed, but you could see him there very happily involved. And it's important to know that a bishop in the United Methodist Church is not just a bishop of one annual conference or one episcopal area, but is a bishop of the whole church. And that's why it's so important. And on the right, you see also some of you as you were visiting. And I'm grateful for your board of ordained ministries, and they will report later this afternoon about their experience and their help and support to the work in Laos and also in Thailand. So thank you for sharing your bishop. Thank you, Bishop Jones, for your engagement. And just 2 weeks ago, we spent a whole evening and a whole morning together really thinking and planning and strategizing and discerning what is the way forward in Laos and in Thailand and how we can be united in mission. You see some of the numbers here, but people here know much more about Laos than I do. Some of you have been there. And also among us is Bali Martin. I don't know whether she is here at this moment. Bali, if you are here, I would like you to stand. Bali, she has just come back from Laos 5 days ago. She is a global mission fellow with Global Ministries, spent 2 years there. So ask her any question about Laos. We are celebrating this year 200 years of Methodist mission. 200 years of mission from American soil. Methodist mission is much older than 200 years, but from American soil. This is for us a very important and special moment. And for me personally, it's quite incredible. I have been overwhelmed this year and very grateful. I'm just a lay person. And I'm from a small Methodist church from the EUB tradition in Germany. And I grew up in this very small town. We had no people who looked different from us than a few British soldiers. Some of them were people of color. But otherwise, the Italian pizza place was the most exotic place I knew for the first 18 years of my life. And then, over the years, through many experiences, to become a missionary in Brazil, to serve with the Methodist Church in Britain, and now in this role, and to be part of 200 years of mission as General Secretary, is just a gift to me, which came really as a gift. It's not something I have worked for, but it's a grace, and I'm glad to be in this position and doing this work, and to share with you some of where we have come from. 200 years of Methodist mission, the first Methodist missionary. Most people do not know who he was. And it all started in Upper Sandusky in Ohio. And you see here on this slide the small cemetery in Upper Sandusky and the mission house, where our mission started and where John Stewart, the first missionary, was buried. When I went to this place, which you see here for the first time in September last year, it was really to prepare for our 200-year anniversary. And I was wondering, what would it be like, because it was mission among the Wyandot Native Americans in Ohio, how our mission started, among the Native Americans. The encounter of missionaries and indigenous people has not always, and this says it very nicely, has not always been life-giving. Very often this encounter has brought death to the people, assimilation, annihilation of so many tribes, and not always we were able to share the life-giving gospel of Jesus Christ in a way that truly brought life, especially to indigenous people. So I wonder, how would it be that we Methodists, our first missionary, went to be in mission among these indigenous people in Ohio? And this from 1816 to 1823, in a time where soon after President Andrew Jackson declared the Indian Removal Act. All the Indians had to leave their land, move beyond the Mississippi to the west, the trail of tears. So many people who died. Even from the place where I live now in Atlanta, I learned that from a small place where there was a gold rush, Of 12,000 people who went on this trail, more than half died while they had to walk to this new place. How would it have been that we Methodists reacted and worked with indigenous people? To my surprise, when I got there, I met Chief Billy Friend. You see him in this picture where Chief Billy Friend explained to me his tribe and the history of his tribe and how John Stewart became a saint of his tribe. And how every year, Chief Billy told me, every year young Wyandots come from Oklahoma, from Kansas. They have 4 bands still and also in Canada to learn about the history, to visit this place, the cemetery where John Stewart and their ancestors are buried. And I thought, how was this possible? They buried John Stewart right next to their chiefs. They gave this piece of the cemetery to the Methodist Church to keep it in trust for all these decades. 1841, and they said, we have buried friends at this place and we don't want them to be desacralized. Please, Methodists, take care, be good trustees of our ancestors, because we have got to know John Stewart. We trust the Methodists and we are your friends. So for all these years, this piece of cemetery belonged to the Methodist Church and to Global Ministries at the Mission Agency. And on September 21st, we will give back this piece of land to the Wyandots as a sign of reconciliation and retribution. So who was this John Stewart? Here you see his photo. And you will be surprised. The first Methodist missionary was a black man. Was a black man who started this missionary movement that has started churches all around the world, which has brought us to this moment there where we are sitting here today in Houston, Texas. John Stewart was a very simple man. John Stewart was so fragile as a young man that when his parents left Virginia, where he was born, he was not able to travel with his parents. And they had to leave him behind in Virginia when they tried to find work in Tennessee. So when he grew up, when he was 20, 21, it's not quite clear from the history, then he tried to find his parents. And he started to travel from Virginia. But unbelievable, the little he had, he lost when he was robbed on his way to find his parents. He was so desperate that he started to drink. He became an alcoholic. He had a lot of problems and diseases. And then at a Methodist meeting, he was found by Christ. And he became a Christian. And he became a Methodist. And then on the road, he suddenly heard God talking to him. Like the voice of a mother, he writes. Like the voice of a mother who called him to go northwest and to follow him to the northwest to share the good news. So he went, and he ended up in Upper Sandusky. This is a very small place, friends. I mean, it's really small. But there he went, and he shared his life with the Wyandotte Native Americans. Today in mission theology, there's a document called Together Towards Life, a changing landscape of mission. It was approved by the World Council of Churches as a key document for mission and evangelism in the 21st century. And one key concept here is mission. Mission has to be, and it's becoming more and more, mission from the margins. Mission from the margins where God's presence is felt and where people are being sent to bring and share the good news and transform this world in the way Christ wants us to transform our communities and our world. Mission from the margins. And I feel that John Stewart was able to do mission in a life-giving way, an encounter with the Native Americans, because he himself was from the margins of the early 19th century of the United States. He was somebody who was able to connect with these people because they know where they were and what their situation was like and what good news meant in this situation. So he very strongly listened to God when he spoke to him on this road and told him to go northwest. But he also listened to the Native American. One of the chiefs said to him, "We don't just want to give up our religion." There's a beautiful speech by one of the chiefs to him, where he challenges him and said, "Don't you see the words also in our religion? And how can we develop this together so that we all become followers of Christ, but with respect?" And that's what happened. And that's what made it successful. And that's why today we still have the cemetery and the graveyard and the mission school. And John Stewart is considered a saint among the Wyandotte natives here in the United States and Canada. When we move on from here, we see that Christianity has completely changed in these 200 years. Now, the changing landscape is not only the mission from the margins, but also the reality that the center of gravity of Christianity is no longer in the north. It's no longer in the country of the Reformation, my own Germany. It's no longer even in the United States, but it's in the south of this world. So here are just some numbers, and the bluer it gets, the more Christians are living there. In 2050, 1 in every 4 Christians will live in sub-Saharan Africa. And even today already, China is the 3rd largest Christian nation in the world. The 3rd largest Christian nation in the world. It's a very strong shift. And we see this in our own United Methodist Church. The growth and the growing number of United Methodists in our central conferences, especially in Africa. So if you want to do mission, it cannot be anymore as we have done mission from New York for 200 years. In 1819, the first Methodist Mission Society was founded in New York, in Manhattan, in April 5, 1819. And for 200 years, we have been there in New York. But we needed to move, and we needed to change our concept of mission. So the next is really a slide which tries to explain this. And if you don't remember anything, try to remember this slide. Mission is from everywhere to everywhere. I keep saying this is not the Delta flight map, although we moved to Atlanta. And I wish, they would sponsor us, but it's really where our missionaries come from and where our missionaries go to. So you see a growing number of missionaries out of Africa, a growing number of missionaries out of the Philippines. I was in the Congo at the Central Conference when we commissioned missionaries. This was an amazing moment. People said, "Missionaries? Aren't these white guys who come from America and tell us the good news?" And they realized, no, mission is from everywhere to everywhere. And the strength of our United Methodist Church is that we now can send missionaries from everywhere to everywhere. These missionaries from the Philippines, from Africa, they really know and have the mission spirit. And we still have missionaries from the United States, of course. But it has to be from everywhere to everywhere. Our mission, our global ministries now has staff from over 30 countries working together in Atlanta. We cannot go back to being a US-based mission agency. That is not the future of mission. It has to be from everywhere to everywhere. Over 50%, and you see this in the next picture, the 50% of our missionaries are from the global south. On the left and on the right are photos from missionary gatherings. Once in the quadrennium, I meet with all the missionaries on the respective continent. On the right, for instance, this was in Johannesburg in January. These are the missionaries from serving in Africa. And you see the color of these missionaries. Many nationalities, many cultures. But this is what helps us and makes us effective and strong in our missionary movement. On the left, our missionaries in Asia, together in Cambodia at our regional gathering. Again, a wide group of people. The body of Christ is so colorful, is so diverse, and that makes it strong, and that makes it different, and that makes it counterculture, where everybody wants to go back to its own little corner, build fences, build walls, and just stay with people who are like me and who look like me. That's not what mission is in the 21st century. An important part of our group are our global mission fellows. And you have seen one and asked her about her experience in Laos. Our global mission fellows come also from all these countries. Our present class has young people between 20 and 30 from over 20 different countries. They are being trained together. This year, our training is in Cambodia, because that's the only place where we get visa for everybody. We can't train them in America anymore. That was my big dream. We do it all in Atlanta. We have Kentler, Emory, we can use all the facilities. It's not possible. Too many of our young people do not get a visa even for the training, although they have a work with global ministries. So we are meeting in Cambodia, a country which offers visa and where we can get all these people from these different countries together. And then these young people go and live for 2 years in mission situations and contexts around the world. These are the young leaders for our Methodist movement in the futures. Early on, they have learned what it means to be in mission cross-culturally, to share with respect the love of Jesus, to learn how to live together with different understandings of faith, or different understandings of living out the gospel in worship and in the political context where they come from and where they go to. Young people who go from Liberia to Sri Lanka, or from the Philippines to Japan, or many other places around the world. And for us, it was very important also as global ministries to say that we need to move out of New York. Not that we didn't like New York, it's a great city. But for us, it was important, how can we missionally be organized and set up in a way which is effective and expresses the 21st century understanding of mission. So in 2016, after almost 200 years, we moved from New York to Atlanta. We moved from New York to Atlanta into a local church. We were able to buy a local church which was declining in the center of Atlanta, renovate the building, but the local church continues to meet there. Also, Action Ministries, one of the hunger and food ministries related to the Georgia conferences of the UMC, continues to offer a table for women who live in the neighborhood every day. And local churches come and support this ministry. For me, it was important to show in our everyday that global and local ministries belong together, that our presence there needs to make a difference also at the place where our offices are. We don't want to be just people hiding in an office and organizing mission. Mission has to be a movement. Mission has to be from everywhere to everywhere. So we had the change to Atlanta, and with the same proposal we said, we want to create regional offices so that the voices, the strong voices of mission and evangelism we hear from around the world will be stronger in our United Methodist Church. And also we can be closer to those areas of our work. So in the next slide you can see that we have the offices in Atlanta, but we also started an office in Buenos Aires in 2016, together with the Upper Room for the Hispanic, Spanish-speaking edition of the Upper Room. The Cenáculo is the Portuguese. What is it? The Aposento Alto. Yeah, Aposento Alto is the right name in Spanish. So for the Aposento Alto, and they are doing this now out of Buenos Aires, and we have a team there working together for our work in Latin America. And then we opened, you see it on the right, an office in Seoul, Korea, where the Methodist Church in Korea offered us space in their headquarters for free. We just pay the utilities. So we can be there, and we are closer to the rising and growing church in China, to the mission initiatives in Southeast Asia, in Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. These were very important steps. You see little red dots. I'm not sure you can see them, but we have a small presence in Europe, in Estonia, in Pärnu, but that's only one person. It just looks more impressive if we have an office in Europe. This is one of our staff, but we work very closely together with the Methodists in Britain and Ireland and continental Europe through the European Commission on Mission. And then also an office in Jerusalem, where we try to work on this very difficult theme of reconciliation and justice between Jews and Arabs, with Muslims and Palestinians in the Holy Land. So these are our offices. But the important message here again is, mission cannot be done just from one place. Mission cannot be done as it has been done for 200 years out of the US center. It has to be from everywhere to everywhere. And it has to be done through people who represent the whole, the full body of Christ. I want to tell you one story about the opening, which illustrates this for me in the most dramatic way. At the which one was that? The Tampa General Conference. We had said that we were creating a provisional central conference in Southeast Asia because we have all these new mission initiatives, and Laos and Thailand is one of them. But the leaders of the churches in Asia did not agree. They were very critical. They said, Thomas, why are the Americans coming back to Asia? We used to be central conference. We are autonomous. We can show you how mission and evangelism works. Our churches are growing. We are in mission all over Asia. Why are the Americans come back wanting to colonize us? And we had very difficult conversations. And then we opened our office in Seoul, and the leaders, the bishops and presidents of the churches in Asia said, we are coming to the opening, but we want to meet with you. We want to continue our conversation from General Conference. We still do not agree. So you can see here in the next picture the number of bishops who were there. We had a beautiful opening service in the Guan Lim Church, the largest Methodist church anywhere in the world, in Seoul, in Korea, where we have a great partnership with them now. And then the next day, we had a breakfast. And you can see the picture of our breakfast and some of the people. It was not taken to be shown. It was just a snapshot. But what was interesting, what happened at this breakfast? It was about the question, why are the Americans coming back here? Why are you going to neo-colonize us? Are you telling us how to do mission again? When we sat around the table, there was only one white guy in the room. And the white guy was even a German. So it became very difficult to talk about this because they realized global ministries, the mission of the United Methodist Church, is no longer just an American mission. It's a worldwide church. It's a worldwide connection, and who is in mission is from everywhere. The leaders, the missionaries, the staff, they represent this. So after the first half an hour, our conversation changed. And it went into the direction, how can we be in mission together? How can we start new mission work together in Asia to reach this world for Christ, especially in countries where there's no Christian presence? So last year, the Methodist Church in Hong Kong invited us to the first Asia Methodist Mission Platform. The first Asia Methodist Mission Platform, where the churches in Malaysia and Korea Methodist and the Chinese Federation of Methodist Churches and the Hong Kong Methodist all came together, and jointly we said, what are the next steps to be in mission together? And in July, we will meet in Vietnam, and we are going, and we have prayed and discerned this whole year, we are going to probably 2 new countries, which I can't mention because they are not very friendly to Christians, where we jointly will start mission work in Asia. That is mission from everywhere to everywhere. Listen to Bishop Fang, whom I asked about this experience.
Friends, I'm here with Bishop Ong. Bishop Ong is the Bishop of the Methodist Church in Malaysia. And congratulations, you have just gone through a dramatic political change and new possibilities in the country. And we are here at the first meeting of the Asian Methodist Mission Platform. What is your biggest joy learning you take home to Malaysia from here?
I think the greatest would be the opportunity to move in synergy together, to discover where God's work is being done across Asia, and to be able to join hands with the others to even make it a greater work. And it is just so enriching to be informed of the work that is going on and to be part of it. So we pray that this will be not only an Asian Methodist mission platform, it will become an Asian Methodist mission movement that will engulf this region, even with others along the way.
Thank you so much, Bishop.
Part of the openness, this picture, you can just move on to the next one. It should have gone out. Yeah, thank you. The part of the openness and the trust was built in Cambodia. In Cambodia, we had a unique experience of different Methodist traditions working together, creating one Methodist church, one autonomous Methodist church of Cambodia. That was an experience which was not always easy, because we had the Korean Methodist, we had the Malaysian Methodist, we had the Federation of Chinese Methodist Churches, we had the Swiss-France Conference, and we had the United Methodists through Global Ministries. We have very different traditions, very different understandings of the episcopacy, of leadership in the church, even on how to celebrate communion. That was a bumpy road. But everybody said, why would we separate in this country? Why would we create different Methodist churches in the country where we are such a minority? And it created this willingness to stay together, to create a church together. And just this year, no, it was last year, we are in May, it was in October, that the Autonomous Methodist Church of Cambodia had its first annual conference. Totally organized, run, led by Cambodians, but as a joint endeavor of these Methodist movements and churches from around the world. And here you can see some of the results. We have faith communities, 148. We have global missionaries from different countries of the world, lay leaders, and almost 7,000 professing members now in this church, which 15 years ago did not even exist, and in a country which has no Christian tradition. We are really together changing this world and spreading the good news. Important in all this is not to forget that migration has played such an important role in all these mission efforts. And your lay leaders this morning, I heard him say that he is second generation. Is that correct? I don't know where he's sitting. Your grandfather so came, and he said, I'm also a product of this immigration. Today we have 65.3 million people who are migrants, who left their country, who do not live where they were born. It's the largest number ever in history. And 21 million of them are refugees, recognized by the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees. This is definitely a crisis. This is definitely something in many places we can only be ashamed of, how we treat people who come and try to find refuge. And I have visited Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and when you hear the stories of the people who live there, it is just no way they can survive, and they can be stopped to coming to find a place of shelter and future for themselves and for their children. And if you look at the number, the global refugee crisis, the highest number is not even here. The highest numbers are from Somalia, from Afghanistan, Syria, in that part of the world where millions are on the run trying to flee the consequences of war, of persecution, religious persecution, of climate change. And here are some of the countries that are taking the brunt of receiving these refugees. And without diminishing the hardship and what is bad about this situation for so many people to have fled, there's also a blessing in this migration. Our mission work in Vietnam started with people who came as boat people to the United States. Were received by Methodist churches, found Christ, found a community, and then said, we want to bring this experience back to our people. The Methodist Church in Cambodia is the same. Refugees who had gone to Europe and the United States went back to tell the story. My own United Methodist Church in Germany, in good part, was born by migrants who came to the United States and found the EUB, the Otterbeins, and all these other guys here. And then they said, we need to go back. This is such a moving experience. We want to share this with our brothers and sisters. So migration is at the root of so much of our mission work. Dana Robert, one of the leading mission theologians in the United States from Boston School of Theology, she said in her famous book, Christian Mission, How Christianity Became a World Religion. She says, bicultural persons were the human bridges across which the good news of Jesus traveled from one culture to another. Bicultural persons were the human bridges across which the good news of Jesus traveled from one culture to another. Migration. Those people who know how to cross cultures, how to bring the good news into different contexts, are the one that spreads the gospel in the first century. All of them, they were great Roman Jews. It was all mixed up, but they were ready to cross these boundaries and go into other cultures and live out the gospel. And we see it everywhere today. One astonishing experience for me was just 2 years ago, I was invited to the 10th founding anniversary and to be the preacher in Dubai of the first United Methodist Church in Dubai. I don't know whether you know there is a United Methodist Church in Dubai. This is one of the many churches our Filipino sisters and brothers have started. They go as migrant workers because the Philippine government, their main economic development strategy is to send workers out so they can send money back to the country. And millions of Filipinos have moved into other parts of the world for work. And the Methodists among them are very faithful. And wherever they go, they start churches. So they have started churches in the United Arab Emirates. And we have growing number of churches. And in the midst of these Muslim countries, they are a presence of Christ, of the church, and they live this in a way which is so astonishing. One or two are ordained pastors. The majority are lay people. One of the key leaders there is an auto mechanic. And he has an auto mechanic shop, and then at night he does a Bible study. On the Sunday, he organizes the church. And I think there is a future for our church. Bivocational pastors, lay leaders who lead these churches and who take their faith with them as they move through migration. Or where we receive migrants and refugees, we might receive the new missionaries for a new generation that will start churches in the places where they have come from. And here on the left, you see this church, which is an Anglican church, and that has been designated by the Emir to be the Protestant church. And they have about, I can't remember, it must be 60 or 70 churches there. And they have church services round the clock because there's not enough room for everybody. So when I went to our Methodist one, on the one church, you hear some Indian Oriental Orthodox church. In the next room, some Pentecostal church, Spanish-speaking. The next room, and they all have worship at the same time. But at least they are all in the same center. It's a new ecumenism which is growing. And I just want to show you this. Houston is present in Dubai. There is Houston Methodist Hospital. They have built this clinic. And I made a connection because we had a meeting here at Houston Methodist, remember? And I said, I'm going to Dubai. And there needs to be some connection because some Filipinos, Methodists, even work in these places. And we need to use it as much as possible. So this is one of the places, and I thought I'm in Houston, show the picture, people are happy. Last, disaster recovery. AMCOR is part of Global Ministries. It's part of what we do, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. It was formed in 1940. And the amazing thing, again, In 1940, why was AMCO founded? Bishop Walls founded AMCO and called the Methodists to give and support because of the refugee crisis in Europe during World War II. He wanted to support the displaced people in Europe, and that's what started AMCO. So this thread about migration, about refugees, is everywhere in our history. We do in AMCO our work without regard to religion, race, gender, nationality. That is very important. We want to serve the least, those who are most affected, and not look at their color or at their creed. And what is important, it's the only ecumenical relief organization that is part of the mission agency. As I said, we respect that we do it without regard of creed and color, but it is expression of the same love of Christ we want to share in word and in deed. And that's why I think it's important. 2017 is a difficult year, and I don't need to tell you this in Houston. We were able in 2017 over the fall to raise $40 million for the response to the different hurricanes. And it is a good example. We said we are not raising funds for a specific hurricane anymore, because this year was a good example. You didn't know, was it Harvey, was it Irma, was it Maria? They all came one after the other. But because we have one advance number for the US disaster, we could help immediately. And why we raised $40 million? By April 2018, this money had already been spent and invested and allocated in the different places, Florida, Texas, Puerto Rico, for the disaster response. $5.8 million went to the Texas Annual Conference. $5.8 million as an expression of the solidarity of the United Methodist people. And I know that Scott gave a good report last year about the details, and you know them much better. But I think it's an important sign of our connectiveness. Because I looked, and I had to say this just to challenge you a bit. Texas Annual Conference last year gave about $300,000 to AMCOR. So you got much more out of it. Just to say. So I just had to say it. They gave me the numbers in the office, and I said, this is just a nice take. But it shows how we Methodists belong together and stand together in times of crisis. Most of our funds went to Puerto Rico because we felt it was more neglected. It had less federal government support. So this was really something where we put most of our efforts in. And over $20 million were spent there. There is a video, but you can just skip the video because we are getting late. I don't want to abuse my time. Skip the video and go straight into the numbers. Yeah. So in Puerto Rico, we have spent $21 million. There was no disaster response organization in the Methodist Church of Puerto Rico when the hurricane hit. Today, and I got these numbers today, we have 170 staff, we have 73 case managers, 13 engineers, 2,000 trained volunteers. They hosted 163 volunteer teams, and as I said, over 20 million spent, and 8 million additional FEMA funds were leveraged. We could access because of the good work we were able to start through the donation of the United Methodist people. This is the reality of our work. And what is so nice, the leadership of the programs, all this big operation in Puerto Rico, is by two Methodist missionaries from Global Ministries. Glory Ma and Ana Carmen Ana were missionaries, and we could just swift their job description, and immediately they hit the road running. When I went there 2 weeks after the hurricane, they were already busy, and now we have this operation which is recognized, which has given a name, a larger name to the Methodist Church in Puerto Rico, and it has been something which really has changed the face of the communities and of the Methodist Church in Puerto Rico. It is something which I think is in our DNA. I have this little drawing which I like to use a lot. It was drawn by the late Lisa Katzenstein, one of our staff, and she drew this as an expression of who we are. You see here, this is a Methodist circuit rider, who puts a saddlebag on the hook there somewhere where he's staying overnight. And these two saddlebags, you see on the one side, he has the Holy Scripture, the Bible. And on the other side is primitive physics. This book John Wesley wrote, and which has 24 editions during his lifetime, which really was a manual for the day-to-day, where he wanted his local preachers and his circuit riders to know how to help people also physically. You wouldn't want to do all what he recommends there now, but at this time, it was at the height of the medical knowledge, because he really read this book and tried to help people holistically with the word, with deed. We bring this together, personal piety, so works of social justice. And this is just an example of our Methodist DNA. So the health piece, which is the last area I want to at least mention, is the ongoing work around imaginal malaria. I know your conference was very much involved in this, with Ivory Coast, distribution of nets. I saw all these videos and pictures you had, and a strong supporter of this work. We have said we need to move beyond giving nets. It is about creating a structure, not one single disease, but helping our churches, especially in Africa, to organize the health work. So these are some of the grants given just last year through our Global Health Program. We have formed health boards where we help and organize together with the central conferences how you can organize the monitoring, evaluation, project management, so that our churches can compete on the market with other donors, with the Global AIDS Fund, with other donors, so they can help and work in health. And just last month, we had the Pan-African Health Forum, where in Zimbabwe, we had 57 participants from all these African countries coming together, sharing best practices, and moving forward as joint health work. So our goal is, and I think my slides have somehow stopped, or it's not moving. Yeah, 13 health sports. I already talked about this. Now comes the Pan-African Health Board. And the next one is our goal, which still remains, that we want to reach 1 million children by 2020 with life-saving interventions. And you can see here what these are as part of the global campaign to really help mother and children and give children a future. So 1 million children. The two videos to end with. The first one is from Burundi. I had to show you this because in Burundi, I had a strange experience. Last year, after 12 years, the Methodist Church, United Methodist Church in Burundi, united again. They reunited after 12 years of being separated. 12 years ago, there was an episcopal election which drew the church apart. About 80% of the church left, stayed, called themselves United Methodists, but were no longer part, elected their own bishop. And then we were involved as global ministries in many, many years of negotiation, mediation, trying to bring these parts together. And then last year, the beginning of the year, we had the special session, not of the General Conference, the special session of the Burundi Annual Conference, where these two parts of the church came together. And it was amazing to see the joy of these people to be one church again. And before we go into separate churches, I wanted to just enjoy this. This was the march from the city center to the opening service of the conference. And what really struck me was the joy of the people, but also their eagerness to be part of a global church. This breakaway group, they were probably 80% of the church, 80% of our Episcopal area there in East Africa. They grew, they built churches, they were strong without any support from anywhere. But they felt they didn't want to be just a Burundian church. They wanted to be part of a global connection. John Nanturi, whom you see here on the left, he's a new legal representative. He said, I don't want to be elected bishop. I only want to be elected bishop if we unite with the United Methodist Church, if we become part of this global connection again. And he said, I will not let you elect me bishop. Let's first unite and come together in the church. And we have started the pastor schools, 300 pastors, eager to learn. The majority of the teachers comes from Africa, but Global Ministries, Higher Education, Virginia Conference, others have joined together to help to bring these pastors together, train them as they move forward as one church. Okay, the last video is now our bicentennial video, celebrating these 200 years of Methodist mission, of which I gave you some glimpses of where we are all together involved in mission. Tomorrow there's a mission breakfast. We have two missionaries who were in Mozambique, Elizabeth and David McCormick, who are now here in the South Central jurisdiction, advocating, talking about mission. You should meet them. Come to the mission breakfast. Great people who are living in Little Rock but serving the whole South Central jurisdiction. And I will be there for any questions and talk to me. It's exciting to be in mission in the United Methodist Church. Let us watch this video celebrating our 200 years in mission.
Over the course of 2 centuries, our Methodist Church has sent thousands of missionaries to hundreds of locations, transforming millions of lives.
I commission you, take the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ to all the world.
At its very core, Methodism is a missional movement. It is our history, our present, our future, and we are all part of it. Our church was born from self-conscious missionaries sent to America by John Wesley. But it was a most unlikely Christian pioneer who is considered to be our first cross-cultural Methodist missionary in America.
John Stewart was a free black man, but fettered to alcohol and depression. He cast aside his demons and planted Christianity among the Wyandot Native American people.
When Methodist men and women heard of Stewart's remarkable work, they responded in 1819 by forming our first missionary societies. And for the past 200 years, we have stepped out in uncertainty and vulnerability because we could do nothing less. Led by the Holy Spirit in unfamiliar territory, compelled to share the love of Christ.
Henry Appenzeller knew church wasn't a place when he penned, "Don't look for a building yet, for you will be disappointed, but pray for it, and Methodism will flourish in the land of the morning call."
We go from everywhere to everywhere and encounter the unknown, guided by faith.
Young Sion Kim says the God-given solution was not to turn anyone away and offer just one meal a day so everyone could eat something. Life is fragile, but God is with us.
Much the same spirit launched our Methodist mission in the Congo. For years, John Springer felt the pull to serve. Upon arriving in Africa, he met a former slave who had also been praying earnestly for the arrival of Christian mentorship.
John Springer said upon meeting Kaigi, "I was convinced that before me stood the one who had prayed us into Africa."
In West Africa today, we have served even in the most difficult of circumstances.
Dr. Albert Willicore on his work after the military coup d'etat in Liberia. I found that it was inextricably the invisible hand of God. I could not abandon the sick behind battle lines.
The sacrifice and peril we faced have long been the reality of service.
And I Ekelin wrote, after the Russian Revolution, I sold most of my possessions and burned furniture for firewood, just to keep our Methodist community together.
Our past has informed our present. Because when seeds of faith are planted, they spread throughout the world.
Clara Mridula Biswas sees transformation from emerging ministries in Cambodia, and she says it is joyful to watch the faces of happy children as they go to places they have never gone before.
Our collective mission over the course of 200 years continues through passionate service of global mission fellows and faithful missionaries who take us with them into the world.
Sonia Vargas prayed, "I understand that it is time to go to the street to extend the hand to the needy, to help them rise, to watch them with loving eyes, and you find yourself in the middle of their necessity."
As United Methodists, we are a community of missionaries. Some of us go from everywhere to everywhere, but some of us stay. And if you have ever put $1 in the collection plate, prayed for those suffering, or shared your faith story, then yes, you are mission too. Because as United Methodists, we are and will always be in mission together.
Thank you.
Thomas, on behalf of the Texas Annual Conference, I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the partnership we have with UMCOR in Harvey disaster relief. That money has been incredibly useful, has helped us to fund the disaster relief offices, has gone to the new partnership we have with Hope Disaster Recovery based out of Foundry United Methodist Church. And so we treasure the partnership with UMCOR. It has worked well. We had a staff meeting last week to tweak it and sort of figure out next steps. Thank you so much for the support of UMCOR in our own disaster here in the Texas Annual Conference. I want to transition now and talk a little bit about the Laos-Thailand Mission Initiative and invite the people who have been with me on that and who have a part of this presentation. When I was bishop in the Great Plains Conference, I was assigned by the Council of Bishops to be the bishop working with this mission initiative. And so one of the first introductory things I said to Jeff McDonald, the chair of the board, is the interesting news about getting me as your bishop is you as a board have to take on the responsibility of credentialing clergy in Laos and Thailand. That has led to members of the board going with me on several trips. In addition to the people on the stage, Ramonica Malone-Wardley has made one trip, Meredith Mills has made one trip, and we want to share with you a little bit about that. Now here's why, people. If you want to know what your bishop thinks about how to measure the health and vibrancy of a local church, there are lots of measures. We talk about increasing worship attendance. We talk about financial health so that you pay your apportionments in full and support these missionaries that Thomas has been talking about. We talk about a number of factors. But a crucial measure in my mind is, are you a mission outpost God can use to transform the world? And to be a mission outpost, in my mind, has 3 levels. 1, I want you loving all God's children in your neighborhood and evangelizing anybody who doesn't know Christ in your mission field. But secondly, I want you involved regionally in larger issues in the life of our conference. We provide you multiple opportunities for that. And lastly, I want every local church to have some involvement in some international mission. We give you lots of opportunities for that, and I hope starting this year, we're going to showcase one significant opportunity for your involvement. No, we're not asking that every United Methodist Church be involved in the Laos-Thailand initiative. But when you hear what these people are going to describe, maybe God's going to be tugging at your heart to figure out how your local church can make a difference here. So we want them to, people who have actually been with me in that situation, to describe some of that. I've lost track of who's going first. So we have Bailey Martin, the Global Mission Fellow, who is from the Arkansas Annual Conference. If you know Bishop Muller, tell him I pronounced it that way, please. You'll see him at the conference next week. And then Jeff Olive, pastor of First United Methodist Church Conroe. Linda Christians on the staff of associate pastor at St. Luke's here in Houston. And Jeff McDonald, pastor of First United Methodist Church Nacogdoches. I guess you're up, Bailey. Welcome to the Texas Annual Conference.
Thank you very much. Sabaidi Tuk Tuk Khan. Hello, everyone. My name is Bailey Martin, and I am a Global Mission Fellow for the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church. For the past 2 years, I have been living in Laos, teaching English and working with the youth of the Lao Mission Initiative. I am incredibly honored to have been invited by Bishop Jones to share a little of my story with you today. 2 years ago, I was a recent college graduate with no direction for my future. The plan I had had for my life since I was 5 years old quickly became unraveled when I took organic chemistry my sophomore year. At the time, I was reluctant to listen to the call that God had placed on my life. So, much like the prophet Jonah, I was looking for a way to run away. A friend of mine told me about the Global Mission Fellows program, and I thought it was the perfect way to escape. I joined for the chance to live abroad, and if I'm being honest with myself, I thought being a missionary would satisfy God enough to get him to leave me alone, and I could do what I wanted with my life. But I was only kidding myself, and it wasn't until much later that I realized I was exactly where God had wanted me to be. The past 2 years have been some of the best years of my life. I went to Laos with the idea that I was going to change lives. I had visions of me working with Lao children and saving them from the poverty and isolation that I imagined they lived in. Instead, those little Lao children saved me. I had been living a life of self-satisfaction and always looking for the next way to get ahead. I was obsessed with the image that others had of me and the definition of success that everyone told me I should have. I'd perfected the language of being a social justice warrior, and in all honesty, I was probably doing more harm to the communities I was trying to help than good. I would try so hard to be a voice for those I thought that needed it that I wasn't giving them a chance to speak for themselves. But Lao quickly humbled me. It's hard to tell others what you think they need when they don't speak your language. For probably the first time in my life, I had to learn how to shut up and listen. It wasn't easy. Adjusting to a new culture can be extremely difficult. But I learned so many amazing things. I learned how to find joy in the small things in life. I learned how important community is, not just to my spiritual life, but to my daily life as well. I learned how to ask for help from the people around me, but most importantly, I learned how to be a better disciple of Christ. It's impossible to be around the Lao Christians and not immediately notice their commitment to God. Being a Christian in Lao is far from easy. They face persecution every day in ways I never would have thought of. Going to Lao, I knew the Christian people in the more rural areas were in danger of imprisonment, exile, and in extreme cases, death. But I didn't think about how it would affect the daily lives of the people around me. Many of my friends in the church have stories of being denied jobs or advancement in their placements simply because they were Christians. Even more have family that will no longer speak to them because they decided to convert to Christianity. A lot of my friends my own age would go to school and tell them their faith to their friends only to be labeled as different and as outsiders. Yet they all persist. They show up to church every Sunday. They continue to share their story. They have a fire for God that I have only ever dreamed of having. Being in community with them not only made me appreciate the religious freedom that I've grown accustomed to, but it taught me how to look for God in times of adversity. I learned how to look for God in the difficult times, not just when it's easy. I've seen what it really means to be a true follower of Christ, and for that, I will be forever grateful to my Lao family. Thank you very much.
In a few minutes, I'll get to come back before you with a report from the Board of Ordained Ministry, where we have a detailed process for clergy coming in and credentialing them. And so when we were invited to go to Laos and Thailand and look at credentialing some of their clergy, we began to put together a process where we developed a set of questions and assignments that would be completed and translated, and then we would go and interview there, and we thought how we'd talk about exegesis and all those kind of things, but we realized quickly with farmers with 8th grade, sometimes educations, that was not going to work out. So we began to talk about things like how grace-based United Methodism attracts people to churches in Laos and Thailand. We began to hear stories about how pastors led people to Jesus and told them about God's love and care for them. Our first year there, we commissioned 11 pastors in Laos and 3 in Thailand. The second year, we commissioned 2 more in Laos. And then this year, we ordained 5 local elders in mission in Laos. This year, we were also able to spend time teaching some course of study classes that were needed and spending more and more time with the folks that are there. We've also been able to tell our brothers and sisters in Laos and Thailand that their family in Texas is supporting them in so many different ways. At our Board of Ordained Ministry meeting earlier in the year, we reported that there were 5 local elders in mission ordained there, and the Board of Ordained Ministry stepped up and said that they would support their salaries there for a year. That's roughly $120 a month for each one of those pastors. We appreciate all that. So the Board of Ordained Ministry has gotten to do some great work there and has enjoyed our time there. But our work there has not just been in meeting with pastors and others. So I wanted Jeff Olive and Linda Christians to come and share a word with you all about the other work that we've been doing there as well.
As part of the Board of Ordained Ministry, it's been my privilege to travel the last few years to Thailand and Laos and be in ministry through assessment and training and credentialing of the pastors for the work that they are doing. So there's a Christian satire news site called the Babylon Bee. There we go. Let me emphasize, it is a Christian satire website called the Babylon Bee. And 2 weeks ago, there was an article that they put out that read this: Church surrounded by 5 nursing homes asks God to reveal next ministry opportunity. And it goes on to talk about how they gathered to pray to God and to seek His wisdom about what He might be leading them to do next. In 2016, when Bishop Jones was assigned as a resident bishop of the Texas Annual Conference, he also was assigned as bishop of Thailand and Laos Mission Initiative. Now, just to clarify real quick, a mission initiative is a country in which the Methodist movement is beginning, yet does not have the structure, the leadership, the credentialed clergy, or really the finances to sustain itself. And so other bishops are appointed or assigned to those areas that work might begin. But this gave this Texas Annual Conference a unique opportunity to be connected through shared Episcopal leadership to a place in Southeast Asia. And these partnerships really give you, and this is my pitch, it gives you as lay people and clergy and churches a simple answer to the question, what might God be leading us to do in mission? If we ask that question, we need not look very far. So we have this unexpected connection. We see the seeds already beginning in these countries. And we, in the Texas Annual Conference, have an opportunity to be part of seeing a Methodist movement begin, become planted, and ultimately self-sustaining. Over the last couple of years, First Methodist Conroe has had the privilege of being in ministry and supporting several projects, 2 over the last 2 years of starting dormitories in northern Thailand. What takes place in many of these communities, they're so small that education is difficult, and if the children want to receive education, the families will send them to larger cities to do this. So you have children, elementary, intermediate age children, going to larger cities to find places to stay. One dormitory we began was for young children who were leaving their villages to go to the city, that they could live in a faith-based community, receive the gospel, also attend school, and here's the really great part. They go back to their villages and they take the gospel there over breaks into the summer and to their parents. And the second is a dormitory that's just being completed really next week called the Susanna Wesley House. That will be for young women who are attending university for the first time. And these young women are from an Akha tribe in northern Thailand, a hill tribe. And it will give them a safe place to stay, be in community, hear the gospel, but also continue their education. So if your church is looking for ways to be involved in education, supporting schools, starting dorms, starting new churches, supporting pastors in the difficult work that they're doing, healthcare, microfinance, these are all opportunities that are before us. Friends, when you're surrounded by 5 nursing homes, maybe we don't need to ask God to reveal our next mission opportunity. Quite frankly, it might be before us. And so I encourage you to go to umcmission.org, umcmission.org. You can search there for Thailand or Laos advanced specials, see some of the ways that you might become involved. I'm grateful for each of you. Thank you.
Three years ago, when Jeff McDonald came up to me at a meeting and said, "Is your passport up to date?" I never in a million years would have thought that it would have been to be able to go to Laos and Thailand on this initiative. So thank you, Jeff McDonald. Thank you, Bishop Jones. It's been the true blessing of my life. I want to tell you about a primary school in a small village near Vientiane, Laos. It's what you might expect a third world country primary school to look like. Perhaps it's even worse than that. 200 children attend this primary school. There's only one water faucet in the yard to take care of their hygiene and their hydration needs. They didn't ask, but we did. We said, "How many more faucets do you need to make this a much better place?" They said, 4 water faucets, but we can't afford them. How much are the water faucets? $500 each. My friends, that's $2,000. We looked at the roof. It was in very poor condition. We said, "How much would it cost for the roof to be repaired?" $6,000. Astronomical numbers to these people, but not so much for us. The relationship, when I mentioned the they is the village chief, the principal of the school, and the local pastor who have formed a relationship. It has developed over time, and now the 3 of them have a deep sense of trust between them. The village chief has come to recognize, accept, and see that the United Methodist pastors and the church care about the children and their need for education. In a recent newsletter, one of the missionaries wrote, and I quote, "As part of our trust-building initiatives, our mission team will go to rural villages to offer our summer English program to students from public schools. Our Global Mission Fellows will facilitate the English classes together with some of our local church youth. This is one way of bringing the school closer to the villages. We truly need and feel that, especially as we visit far-flung villages, to encourage our Lao brothers and sisters to be steadfast in their faith and commitment, despite the many difficulties and challenges that we face as a non-recognized church. The work is ever expanding, and the English classes are helping the government, hospital, health-related offices, and projects and communities as our missionary partners started to recognize what is called the Sunbeam Language and Vocational Center as a mission arm of the Lao Semphon Methodist Church. Our team also was able to visit one of the hospitals. It was the largest of 5 All happened to be near and in the city of Vientiane. We met with physicians and many of the directors of differing departments. The reason we were able to go to visit was because a Filipino missionary by the name of Angie Barancana has been teaching English to these physicians and the nursing and medical teams. And through that relationship, she was able to get us to come in and be able to visit with them to hear their needs. It is our hope, at least it's my hope and prayer, and I suspect it's the entire team's, that through our connections with the bishop, the Methodist Hospital, medical bridges, and key lay leaders, that we might be able to get them more training, more equipment, and supplies needed. Breast cancer is the #1 killer in Laos. They do breast cancer surgery every day that they operate. That is unacceptable. They don't have a mammogram machine, they don't have ultrasounds, nor do they have a CAT scan machine, at least in this hospital that we were in. So I end with this, again in this newsletter. There was a box, and it said the prayer request box. It says, please pray for the safety of our missionaries while visiting villages and provinces, for more sustained partnerships for community development projects, for our pastors and their families, for incoming visits and travels of all of our mission partners, and for recognition of Lao Samphon Methodist Church. I ask that you keep these in your prayers as well. Thank you.
If your congregation is paying its apportionments in full, if you are praying for some international missionary by name on a weekly basis, if you're sending money to advance specials to make a difference in the ways that we've described, God bless you, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not quite at capacity yet, why don't you pray and find out if the Laos-Thailand Mission Initiative is a place where you'd like to invest? Any of these people could be around, and Bailey, you're going to be here tomorrow as well? A little bit, but around. She's got a booth out there. She'll be at the Global Mission booth. If you're a young person who's interested in being a Global Mission Fellow, she'd be glad to talk about that. Also, the video that Thomas Kemper closed with will be available on our conference website by the 1st of next week, if you'd like to use that to sort of stir up interest in the life of your congregation. Thank you so much to the team that's shared on this with you all. I want to turn now to retiree videos, and then we'll move to the Board of Ordained Ministry report after the videos.
I've had a wonderful career in the Texas Annual Conference, and my word to the Texas Annual Conference is thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been truly wonderful. I had a wonderful opportunity to work with one of the most talented pastors I've ever known, Dr. Lamar Smith, when I was my first appointment out of seminary to First Methodist Church of Conroe. I worked with him for 3.5 years, and he changed my life forever. And I had an opportunity to be a new church planter in Kingwood, being we called it organizing pastor in those days, but I was the organizing pastor of what would be called Strawbridge United Methodist Church in Kingwood, and stayed there for 8.5 years. And then sometimes your prayers are answered in a specific way, your dreams come true, and I was very much attracted to the ministry of the United Methodist Foundation, and was so delighted when I was appointed there in 1997, and served there for 21 years as a development officer of that organization, and later I was appointed president in 2003. And so that whole experience was definitely the highlight of my career. Well, I have my plans for retirement is I am continuing to work full-time for Texas Methodist Foundation. I really plan on doing that just about another year, and in 2020, my wife and I plan to move to Paris, France, and I plan to work for a period of time for the American Church in Paris. I haven't signed a contract yet, or what they call received a call for them, but this is a Protestant church in the city of Paris, American-speaking community, and it looks like things are working out where that's going to happen in 2020, and so I'm looking for that time that we will spend in Paris, France. After my time in Paris, we're planning to move back to the Houston area, and this is where we've been since 1980, and I'm looking forward to continue to watch wonderful things happen within the church where I attend and within the Texas Annual Conference. There's so many people that I know and so many younger people that I know that I'm happy that they're beginning that journey that I started in 1972. It's been just a wonderful journey, and I am looking forward to watching others and working with others in the days ahead.
Well, my call to ministry began when I was a young adult. In 1978, I was a school teacher at A-Leaf Middle School. I was a young adult in West Houston, and I found myself pretty much alone. And so one Saturday evening, I decided that I was going to go to church, because that's what my parents did when I was younger, and I didn't have a church. I didn't know where to go. So I got in my car, got on Memorial Drive at Wilcrest, because I lived in West Houston, and I came upon this church, and it said Memorial Drive Methodist Church. And so I made the right turn off of Memorial Drive into the parking lot. I went in, sat in the back pew, and I heard things that I just had not heard before of love and hope. And my mentor and pastor, Dr. Gene Craig, gave the invitation at the close of the service, and something compelled me. I just stood up, surprising to me, and walked forward, gave my life to the Lord and to the church. And it's never been the same since. It was as if I made the right turn on that day in 1978. The highlights in my ministry have been the 4 congregations that I have served and have learned so much from all of them. The colleagues that I have met, the ministries that I've engaged in. I met my wife at Bear Creek United Methodist Church when I was on staff there, and that was a beautiful thing for me. And then to have the opportunity to plant a congregation. It was a hope and a dream of mine when I responded to my calling in 1979 through Dr. Craig's leadership. And I never thought it would really come to pass. I hoped it would, but when it did in 1991, it was the fulfillment of a dream and the beginning of something that I hope God would use to help plant a community of faith, a United Methodist congregation that would lead in hope and love. And so that's been a real unbelievable joy in my life. I'm very excited about the retirement that's to come. We're looking forward to remaining in the Woodlands. We're looking forward to experiencing our 3 granddaughters. We're so excited about that. We're looking forward to leisure travel, but I'm also looking forward to finding ways of serving the conference in the retired status and being a part of the life of our church. I'm excited about the new things that God may bring into my life. My hope and passion is that we will continue to be united in our work together and to know that God is doing great things through our Methodist movement.
Michelle Hall, who is the chair of the Texas Conference Missions Committee for the Advanced Special Report. Michelle?
Good afternoon.
It is indeed a privilege to be a Christian in the United Methodist Church and to experience the many ways that we extend ourselves and the generosity. I was just overwhelmed by the presentation, the previous presentation. And so on behalf of the Missions Committee of the Center for Missional Excellence, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your second mile giving. Thank you for giving through the advanced special over the many years. And as a result of your generosity at the end of 2018, your advanced giving toward Golden Cross was a little better than $10,000. Thank you. At last year's annual conference, the Mission Committee presented to the body for recommendation that for the subsequent 3 years, we would parallel the focus of We Love All God's Children. In 2019, the giving would be toward literacy. In 2020, it would be toward the health initiative. And in 2021, it will be toward discipleship. Thus far in the year of 2019, your giving exceeds a little more than $3,000. The great news is you have all the way until the end of December to give toward that. And so moving into 2020, you will begin to have the privilege of giving toward the health initiative. It is with deep gratitude and hope that I present this before you, Bishop Jones, and with great expectation that we will exceed what we are indeed hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Hi.
Microphone number 2, your name, please.
I'm Mary Lou Reese. Can you guys hear me? Is the microphone on? Yeah, there we go. Mary Lou Reese, and thank you for, man, I should never wear black. You can't see me. I've been over here.
I can see you just fine. I was hoping for a little other direction, though.
Oh, well, gosh, hope away. So last year I told you a few things about your bishop that let you get to know him, and one was that our son did not want him to be a bishop because all bishops are sad and old. And so then when he got to be a bishop, we made it our project to keep him from being old and sad. And so I have a few pictures. I think that we'll get, yes. So one thing that has made him joyful is look at that little crowd of mostly girls. We have one little boy, and we have another girl on the way, and I just thought I'd show that picture. And then I have another picture up there. So we did take we had to go to Manila for a church meeting. And so I went with him, and of course, anytime I go, we have fun. So we found a resort to go to in the Philippines. And do you see those poles? That's the handrail. It's being held by people to get onto the boat. We went scuba diving, and that was fun. Does he look really old and sad there? No, not so much. But, you know, the inimitable Will Willimon said that Scott always looks like a 13-year-old boy opening up his Christmas present. And I wanted you to see a few pictures of him. Really, the reason that I decided that I wanted to talk about his age and whether he was really old this year is that he turned 65 last week, which you all have heard. He's now, you know, registered for Social Security. But would you give me that picture from Vail? Oh, okay, so this picture, that's okay, good. This is a good picture. He looks pretty young there, doesn't he? And I look, you know, I have that gray hair. I don't look so young. And so really, and then the next picture, go ahead. So just ignore this person in the middle. Can you guys focus on that picture of Scott in the back? I mean, I just want you to focus on that. Does he look 20? This was 2007, and I'm really going to just complain here Because I've had this gray hair. It started when I was 18, and I cannot tell you how many times I have been mistaken for his mother. Now, but you know, this photo makes me go, well, yeah, he looks like he might be my grandson. But no, he's not. Scott, but Scott, look up at me right
Yes,
here.
dear.
Yeah. Okay, so,
I'm listening to you.
I know you are. You're so sweet. You always listen so well. But he does look older than this picture, doesn't he? Do you guys think he looks a little older than this? You wouldn't mistake him for my son today, would you? No. This was in 2007. So really, I think Arthur's fear came to pass. You really do look a little older. Do you think? Okay. So anyway, and now I just want you to know that as early as when I was 29 and as late as when that last picture was up on the board, I have been mistaken for his mother. And one time, I just have to tell you, we were with his mother. And we had small children. Yeah, you get it. Okay, anyway, I thought I'd gig myself this time. So the other thing about Scott is that I have to talk to you about is that he has a great sense of direction. You know, he mostly knows where he's going, and he can always be relied on to know which is north, south, east, and west. And you know, when he says it's that way, it's probably that way. And when he says, yes, you ride under 288 on your bike every time you get out and ride your bike, and I say, no, I surely don't. Well, yes, indeed we do. So he's almost always right about direction, but I'd like that picture of, so we once upon a time took a youth group to, I know, don't look at him turn red, to Paris. We actually went to Taizé, but we spent a few days in Paris. And the kids wanted to go, it was right after the movie of Moulin Rouge came out. The kids wanted to go see the Moulin Rouge. So we did, and then Scott, who had recently spent a week at Le Sacré-Cœur, which is where this is, at the top of the mountain in Paris. It's a convent, and there are stories about that too. But anyway, he said, well, we ought to go to Le Sacré-Cœur because there's this great view of the whole city, so let's just walk. So we start walking from Moulin Rouge to this place. And you know where you have to go? Scott, where do you have to go through to walk? You knew how to get there. You made it.
I want credit for taking the shortest route.
Yeah, so where was that shortest route?
It went through the red light district.
We had a group of youth with us in the red light district of Paris.
I did not know it went through the red light district.
True. That speaks well of him, don't you think, that he didn't know that? But here we are, there are two adult women and Scott, and he has long legs and can book it. And man, when he realized where he was booking it. And we two women who were kind of also in charge of the group were making sure we didn't lose any of the kids that were going. Anyway, so, although he has a great sense of direction, it comes with a little risk. It comes with a little risk. And
are you about through?
No, not quite. So I've got another picture. And this one is, so we are in the Alps, just a little family trip that we had taken. And we're in the Alps and we're doing a hike. And do you see that path? So it is a drop-off on both sides. And both Mary Nell and I are completely scared of heights. And so it was the five of us, the three guys, and Mary Nell and I, and we go across this ledge on our rears because it was so scary. I have never done this before, but we were trying to get to a waterfall. There's this beautiful waterfall, and they told us, and here we are, and we're on this ledge going, oh my gosh. And so finally, we get across this ledge, And Mary Nella says, I've had it. I'm done. I'm going back. And so I said, okay, I'll go back with you, and the boys can go find the waterfall. And I don't have a picture of the waterfall, but Mary Nell and I found the waterfall. The boys came back covered in mud. So even though he sometimes knows his directions, he occasionally gets lost. So don't you ever let him tell you, Scott, do you occasionally get lost?
Do I what?
Occasionally get lost?
Yes, dear.
However, not nearly so often as I do. I'm through.
You all don't really have to applaud for her. It just encourages her. Jeff McDonald, where are you? Come rescue me.
I was sitting next to Mary Lou, and I told her I did not have quite 40 minutes for my Board of Ordained Ministry report, and so I yielded a little time to her, a gift to you.
I think you're confused about who the gift is for.
It is my honor and privilege to serve as the chair of the Board of Ordained Ministry. It is not a job that I do on my own, though, so I would like to take a moment and ask those of you who serve on the Board of Ordained Ministry if you would stand, please, and let us recognize you. There are about 65 folks who serve on the Board of Ordained Ministry. We meet 4 times a year. That's for formal meetings, but they also meet with candidates in resident effectiveness teams and covenant groups and read papers and hours of work that goes into the credentialing of our candidates. But today is this and tomorrow night is one of the best parts of my work and our work on the Board of Ordained Ministry. So I'd like to introduce to you this afternoon those who the board and the clergy session has voted in to be members in, let me move back a page, I'm sorry. These folks were to be elected as provisional members, and the provisional deacons to be elected are Catherine Flint, Whitney Pepper, and Stephanie Wilkins. You want to take all of them? And these to be elected as provisional elders, Sadie Brink, Megan Byers, Matthew Cecil, Danielle Fralin, Sean Leake, George Cabe Matthews, Katie Montgomery Mears, Rebecca Newcomb, Sarah Patillo, Mark Porterfield, Lataya Simpson, Amanda Stratton, and Melinda Thompson.
I hope you will welcome these people as participants in the life of the Texas Annual Conference. They are being commissioned. They are probationary, provisional members of the conference. But for each of you who has been through the process, we're grateful for God's call in your life and look forward to your time of service among us. So welcome to the Texas Annual Conference.
Board of Ordained Ministry has interviewed, and the clergy session has voted on these who are to be elected as members in full connection and elders in the Texas Annual Conference. Trey Burns, Michael Ginger, Stephen Goldsmith, Andrew Hook, David Johnson, Joseph Clem, Daniel Lumpy, Patricia Lund, Joel McKinnon, John McMahon, Michael McVeigh, Stephen Newcomb, Carla Price, Johnny Simpson, Michael Wang, and Alex Zeisig.
If the candidates would turn around and face me. I have delayed the asking of these questions so that it would be done in front of the entire annual conference. That's been my practice as a bishop. And the reason for that is the same reason that, well, you ask people who bring a baby to be baptized certain questions about their intentions, or in the course of a wedding ceremony, you ask people to make certain promises. You do that in front of the community because there may come a time when things get rough and you begin to wonder, what have I gotten myself into? And fortunately, there are people here who will be witnesses to this examination and will remind you, I was there when Bishop Jones asked you, and that will be a positive and helpful reminder for you. I can tell you stories of people who were at my wedding and said, didn't you promise Mary Lou such and such? I said, yeah, I did. And it made me be a better husband. So I'm going to ask you the questions for elders, and I'm going to add the one question that gets asked of deacons as well, because I'm allowed to add to the list, and it strikes me as being a part of our job description as elders as well. Have you faith in Christ? Are you going on to perfection? Yes. Do you expect to be made perfect in love in this life? Yes. Are you earnestly striving after it? Yes. Are you resolved to devote yourself wholly to God and God's work? Yes. Do you know the general rules of our church? Yes. Will you keep them? Yes. Have you studied the doctrines of the United Methodist Church? After full examination, do you believe that our doctrines are in harmony with the Holy Scriptures? Yes. Will you preach and maintain them? Yes. Have you studied our form of church discipline and polity? Yes. Do you approve of our church government and polity? Yes. Will you support and maintain them? Yes. Will you exercise the ministry of compassion? Yes. Will you diligently instruct the children in every place? Will you visit from house to house? Yes. Will you recommend fasting or abstinence, both by precept and example? Yes. Are you determined to employ all your time in the work of God? Yes. Now, the next one is the question you need to think about the answer for. Are you in debt so as to embarrass you in your work? Not in debt generally, but so as to embarrass you in your work. Will you observe the following directions? Be diligent, never be unemployed, never be triflingly employed, never trifle away time, neither spend any more time at any one place than is strictly necessary. Be punctual, do everything exactly at the time, and do not mend our rules, but keep them, not for wrath, but for conscience sake. Will you observe these? My sisters and brothers, welcome. It's a privilege to be your bishop and to be the one to ordain you tomorrow night. welcome to the Texas Annual Conference. We're glad to have you among us. Face the congregation of the conference and let them welcome you again.
For those to be certified?
No, I don't. Do I?
Another important piece of work of the Board of Ordained Ministry is the certification in specialized ministry, areas like youth ministry and Christian education. We have a number of candidates this year that are being certified, and I wanted to invite Teresa Rossi. She serves on the board and oversees that area, and she'll come forward and introduce them to you. Y'all say a word of welcome to Teresa.
The Apostle Paul wrote, "Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit, and there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but the same God who activates all of them in every one. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us." Brothers and sisters in Christ, these persons stand here today, having discerned the special gifts of God's Holy Spirit given to them for specialized ministry to the church and the world. They have sought and met the standards of training, experience, and continuing study necessary to achieve and maintain excellence in specialized ministry. They have met the standards of the United Methodist Church for professional certification and have been approved by the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry and their friends and peers on the Board of Ordained Ministry. It's fitting and appropriate to recognize their achievement and bless them for this specialized ministry.
Kim Copeland has received her professional certification in ministry. Lisa Gill has received her professional certification in youth ministry. If you couldn't hear me, the first person is Kim Copeland. Jessica McMullen has received her professional certification in youth ministry. Whitney Pepper has received her professional certification in Christian education. Jim Ryder has received his professional certification in spiritual formation. Debbie Shaw has received her professional certification in Christian education and children's ministry. Amy Spees has received her professional certification in youth ministry. And Leanne Williams has received her professional certification in Christian education and children's ministry.
Would you join with me in a spirit of prayer as I bless these people? Let's pray. Gracious God, by the gifts of your Holy Spirit, you have blessed your servants to bring grace, healing, mercy, hope, and love to your church. Help them to understand and live into the mystery of your love. Deepen their sense of purpose as they fulfill their gifts in ministry. Amen. And now to those of you who have been certified, I bless you to be faithful servants among the people. Fulfill the gifts given to you by God's Holy Spirit. Strive to excel in them and serve with the strength that God supplies, so that God may be glorified in all things through Jesus Christ. Amen. Congratulations. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Texas Annual Conference. Thank you, Bishop Jones. That concludes the report of the Board of Ordained Ministry. You only thought it concluded our report. I'd like to invite Gail Ford Smith and Elizabeth Duffin to come forward for clergy recognitions.
Refresh is a gift from the Texas Annual Conference offered through the Center for Clergy Excellence to recognize clergy at milestones along their ministerial journeys. We invite clergy at 5-year increments from the time of their licensing or ordination into ministry to take time away to reflect anew about God's call upon their life and how that call is being renewed and reformed for future years. As the names of this year's class are scrolling, we invite you to thank God for their faithful ministry among us.
Having recognized the milestone anniversaries of gifted, diverse clergy, it seems only appropriate to turn and think about where our next generation of thriving clergy leaders will come from. We believe that the future clergy of our churches are already here, worshiping in your church, attending our colleges and universities, and working in our communities. What these young people need is a community of love to affirm and sharpen their call, and the time and space to discern it. This year, we have 5 young people doing just that. They are our college pastoral interns for 2019, and I invite them to stand so you can recognize them here. In addition, we have 2 young seminarians spending their summer as church planting interns, discerning if God is calling them to plant and grow new churches. Will you both stand? Every summer, you support these young people and many others like them by helping them have time and space to discern what future God is calling them into. I invite you to be in prayer for them and in prayer for our churches as they raise up the next generation of our clergy leadership. Thank you.
We turn now to another set of retiree videos. Let's watch.
I was called into ministry at Lakeview when I was 13. I was attending a conference-wide event called LEAD. They were teaching us how to be leaders in the church when we were in 8th grade. It was wonderful. There are some other future pastors there. We were singing the Lord's Prayer to the tune of Hernando's Hideaway. And no kidding, we were all circled up there on the softball field. And as we were singing, I just felt like I was hit with a ton of bricks. And I heard God's voice say to me, I want you to preach. And I fell to the ground and started sobbing. I'd never heard a woman preach. I didn't know that was possible. I thought, okay. And I came home and I said to my dad, I've been called to preach. And he said, that's nice, dear. And I told my preacher at the home church, which was First United Methodist Church of Lamarck, Jewel McClure. And he said, well, you have to give a testimony. And I did that Sunday morning. And this is the beauty of being in a wonderful church like that. Everyone but one came up to me and said, that is wonderful, we believe in you, this is terrific. And that one said, this will never last. This may come as a real surprise, but I was the first woman at every appointment I served. There were certainly challenges being in the first wave of clergy women. I was very blessed that there were 4 of us that came out at around the same time. A few were out before me. We made a covenant. We knew there would be some challenges. We made a covenant to be together. This was long before cell phones. And so we said we would meet up together regularly, that we would hold each other in prayer, and we would be a covenant group. And we are, of course, sisters and dear friends, and we sort of raised our families together, and that's what has sustained us all these years. And so, frankly, when there were some people that did not want us, we had made a covenant that we would never respond negatively. We would try to smile sweetly and love them through it, because we knew there were women coming after us. And if we ever acted out or acted in anger, it would harm them. We all know how important balance is in our ministry, of setting important boundaries as well, of taking care of yourself. Every one of us is wired a little differently. Obviously, no two women are exactly the same, just like men aren't the same. We all have different needs. We knew and trusted our gifts. We were deeply grateful to the United Methodist Church, who made the decision in 1956 to ordain women. So we knew we had the support of God and Jesus and the United Methodist Church. Retirement, I'm very excited. Grandchildren. 2 granddaughters. One lives in Austin, who's finishing 8th grade, and another who's 3 1/2 that lives in Dallas. And their parents have suggested I need to spend more time with them, which of course will be my delight.
My call in ministry was somewhat entertaining for me, and it made Bob Parrott's book. I was a student in the youth group at First United Methodist Church, Longview. I had been raised in the church and baptized as an infant, and it was career night at MYF. And I went to the Sunday school room where the doctor was, and you couldn't get in. I went to the room where the lawyer was, and I couldn't get in. And I went to a couple other rooms and, just didn't call my name. So I ended up in the chapel on the 3rd floor of the First United Methodist Church of Longview. And there I had this deep, deep sense of call while listening to the associate pastor and talking with him, and there were a couple of other folks of call to the pastoral ministry of the local church. And there have been other times when I've kind of tested that, and the old line says, don't give up your day job. And so that call has stayed with me these long, many years, since 17 years old. Being involved thoroughly in the community of several places, from the church to the Chamber of Commerce to the Rotary Club to the scouting organizations, things like that. Participating in the Disciple Bible Study when it first came out in the late 80s or early 90s, and going through that and watching people and sharing lives together through Bible study and being transformed in discipleship has been truly, great moments in life. Right now, retirement will be staying in the place where we are. My wife and I like where we are. We're going to retire, rehire, as they say in the education. Judy, who has been with me for 40 plus years and has moved and always said, let's see where the road takes us. She wants to continue working a couple of years. And so the churches are in a very, very difficult situation and declining with membership and declining with finances. And so it's really a good opportunity for me to go to part-time as a retired pastor. It will greatly help those churches and give me a couple of more years. I like what the bishop said. Breathe in, breathe out. God is in control, and we will have church and have worship next Sunday morning at the appointed hour. And that is my message to my colleagues and friends. Hey, Sunday's coming, get ready.
Friends, we're headed toward our dinner break, but B.T. Williamson has some instructions about our session tomorrow, and you need to hear that before we leave. B.T.?
Thank you, Bishop. Tomorrow, main part of our day will be devoted to the election of our delegates to General and Jurisdictional Conference. The voting bar of the conference tomorrow will be the 4 front sections. So we're asking, as you gather in the morning, that clergy who are eligible to vote sit in these 4 sections. Laity, spouses, and friends, please sit in the back sections. Then in the afternoon, we'll reverse that, and the laity will sit in the bar of the conference. Thank you.
In case you're not aware, we will be using electronic voting machines. They're not the kind of thing that you can take home with you. So as you are moving into the bar of the conference, you'll be given a voting machine, and that's how we will be voting. We'll have a practice run before we get going, but that's what's going to start. At 8:30, there will be a devotional, and then we'll move into the voting. The plan is for the clergy voting to be done in the morning and the lay voting done in the afternoon. So that's the plan for tomorrow. I turn now to Scott Atnip for our closing prayer, and then we will be adjourned until the worship service tonight at 7 o'clock back here in this room. Scott?
Thank you, Bishop. Nothing like being the person standing between the body and a dinner break. So let us pray. Creator God, we thank you for this inspiring afternoon. We thank you for the lives that you have called into ministry, for those who are beginning their journey this week, for those who have met milestones, for those who have completed their journey and continue to inspire us forward. We thank you for those missionaries serving throughout the world who are going from everywhere to everywhere. But we pray that your Spirit remind us this week that you are not just calling others to serve. You're not calling others to go from everywhere to everywhere, but you are calling each and every one of us to go from this place back to our communities, back to our mission depots, to continue your work there. We pray that this week not just be about a time of business or about elections or about any of those things, but that this week be about a time to inspire each and every one of us to fulfill your mission in our own communities, to make disciples of Jesus Christ, to share God's radical love, to transform our communities and transform the world into an image that more closely resembles the kingdom of heaven than the hurting world that we sometimes see. Help us to leave this place ready to do your work, ready to challenge our congregations, ready to challenge our fellow believers to do your work in radical and new ways. We pray that as we go into this next time, that you bless the meals that we will share, the fellowship that we'll have, and the work that you will continue to inspire us to do. We ask all of this in Christ's holy name. Amen.
We're adjourned.